Good morning and welcome. This is Enterprise Weekend, reaching you from Enterprise Television. My name is Henry Gwibike. Let's start today with our newspapers, and from there we move on to our main conversation. Also, do well to be part of what we do. Have a say in what we say. You can find us when you reach us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. We're very so honored to have with us joining us via Zoom, Muhammadu Buhari, journalist, public affairs analyst, to see through all that we have and possibly have his say on our main conversation for today. Good morning, Emeka, and welcome to Enterprise Weekend.
Good morning. Happy weekend.
Thank you so very much, and happy weekend to you and to Nigerians both at home and those in the diaspora. Wherever it is you're reaching us from, we say you're welcome to our weekend edition of Enterprise Television. Now let's start with the Weekend Trust today, which is a weekend version of the Daily Trust newspaper. And we have the big story: insecurity, Kwara bleeds. And we have a graphical representation of black spots where we've had issues there, considering the insurgency that had pervaded that particular area. And we'll have below the story: depression, failed marriages, fueled drug abuse among women. Live of former governors turned traditional ruler, and how misinformation throws Nigerian women into surrogacy ditch. And also, bridge roads succumb to flood in Taraba, Kebbi, and others. Court halts the police enforcement of tinted glass permits. Chibok girls abduction, a scar I will die with. And that's coming from Goodluck Jonathan. Emeka Madnago, let's start with the tinted permit. Court halts the police enforcement of the tinted glass permit. We know our Nigerian police force, they are very so happy when things like this happen, when they are given the opportunity to recklessly, impose what they know how to do best. I learned that in 6 states they have, of course, taken over about 216 cars, including that of a judge of the High Court. Emeka, speak to me. Do you think they would obey the laws of the court, especially as regards asking them to halt?
Well, thank you very much. It is very sad that an institution created by law, chooses to live above the law. It's the Federal High Court in Warri that ordered the police to maintain the status quo regarding the enforcement of the permit. The court issued the order yesterday, Friday. Now, this morning, the first PRO, CSP Benjamin Hundeyin, went on X, to post the meaning of status quo. That tells you how some of these people reason. He went on X to post the meaning of status quo. But honestly speaking, he ended up making mockery of the police, because one of the meanings there is that the state returned to the state at which things were before the current time, and that is status quo ante bellum. Now, what was the state? The police issued an order. Now, the order was meant to begin to be enforced by Thursday, October 2. Now, what was the state of things before this time? There was nothing like that. So, to now start looking for justifications. You see, the Nigerian police that have been arresting activists and journalists, for cyber, for allegedly posting false information. They've now, used hiding under the Cybercrime Act, are now even using that to, unfortunate purposes. I mean, the initially when the NBA filed a case against the police, the police now went on Facebook and X to post a long statement And people advise them, take this statement to the court. Social media is not the court. You are the ones who have been trying to, who have been victimizing people, claiming that they are using social media, that they are misusing social media. Now you are the ones using social media to your own ends and purposes. So what I will advise them is that they should obey the court order. Those vehicles they impounded, sincerely speaking, they are going to pay damages. If they think the law is a joke, they let them wait. Because you see, the police does not exist as an extrajudicial arm of the National Assembly of the country. You cannot just make laws. You cannot just make laws on revenue generation on a whim. You can't make laws whimsically. Because even the federal government has had to backtrack on such issues. Look at the 5% fuel tax that is there in the FEMA Act, Federal Roads Maintenance Agency Act. The federal government had to backtrack because the act does not explicitly empower the federal government to charge a 5% fuel tax. There are specific circumstances within which this can be implemented. So you can't just wake up and say tinted, you impose tinted permit, and then a court says, hold on, let us hear from all sides. Because there's a basic maxim in law, audit paterm, hear the other side. So you have not even come before the court to, give reason why the court should not have made the order. What you're doing is that you're not going ahead in the mistaken belief that you are above the law. And that is the sad thing about, the current IG, Egbetoku, who thinks he has his own understanding of what the law says. But definitely that policy is going to be defeated in court, right up to the Supreme Court, because you have no right.
Yes, Emeka, but sorry,
import duties are charged at entry, at point of entry. Now, if the police believe that there is a reason to charge a tinted vehicle on any vehicle that has tinted glasses, let it make recourse to the National Assembly and ask that the law on import, on import duties and all of that should be amended, and then there will be a public debate on it, because what they are doing amounts to multiple taxation, and the new tax laws of the Tinubu administration do not have any provision for tinted permits. So you cannot just wake up and impose a law. And by the way, the Nigerian police was not a revenue generating agency. That point has been made clearly. So all of these things they charge money for this charge. You can only maybe make charges on certain administrative functions. For instance, maybe you provide escort services, and then that's okay that the recipient should pay certain amounts, to cover logistics, maybe feeding of those police officers, and all of those things, maybe insurance also. But you cannot just wake up and impose a tinted vehicle permit. It is not done. Let us learn, soldier go, soldier come, barracks remain. The IG should stop this lawlessness. He should stop this. Because one day he's going to leave that office. And who knows? Who knows what might face him after he leaves the office? People should think beyond the grandeur of the offices they hold. They should think about the future. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emeka. I had wanted to interject while you were speaking. And my reason for that was to say this is a clear-cut moral issue. If you must have a tinted glass in your car, you should, of course, disclose why it is so. Remember, we're still battling with insecurity, gross insecurity in Nigeria. And most of those criminalities is made possible as a result of people who traffic victims of kidnapping. And while these cars are tinted, the Nigerian police force, whose responsibility is to secure lives and properties, cannot ascertain who is in the car as a result of the not so transparent nature of those glasses. So don't you think this is a very, small issue of whoever it is should have a tint on his glass should just make it known to people or else remove it? So why is this bringing so much trouble?
No. Sorry. We cannot mix morality and legality. Look, the law is the law. Morality is morality. If you don't want tinted vehicles in the country, go to the National Assembly and make a presentation that they should ban the importation of tinted vehicles. Also add that there should be no aftermarket installation of tinted vehicles, because some of the tints are also they go to somebody, maybe go to one auto parts market and get it installed. If you don't want it, go straight. If you feel you will need it, then also approach the National Assembly to ask for powers to do that. You can impose the powers on yourself. That is what we are talking about. You cannot impose powers whimsically. When you're talking about fighting insecurity, there was a minister of Police Affairs, who even by himself stood at the checkpoint and was removing the things. He didn't charge, he just said they should be removed. But at the end of the day, did this happen? The answer is no. What we're talking about is this. At the point of registering vehicles, and by the way, this thing is actually within the realm of vehicle administration of the states, where if you're trying to get a vehicle license, you will state the color, the chassis number, and all of that. So if you want to do that, please let it be subjected to a public hearing. That's part of democracy. You have brought up a policy and people say they don't want it. In France, not long ago, the government raised a fuel tax, and people came out in protest, blocked the roads, because they said that, look, middle class and lower class people mainly live on the outskirts of the major cities like Paris, and they have to drive to work and back home every day. So imposing a fuel tax on them means you are punishing them for not having the money to rent apartments inside the major cities. Yes, so when we're talking about morality, also turn it to the other side. Because you cannot now impute that everybody using a tinted vehicle is a criminal or is a potential criminal. What we are saying is that if you are fighting insecurity, yes, it is commendable, but go about it the proper way. We see bandits operating in the north. They don't operate with tinted vehicles. They go on motorbikes. And in their numbers. So what you're talking about is this. Look, if you want to impose tinted vehicles, call for the help of the National Assembly. Hold a public hearing, a public debate. Because the security issue, and all of us are part of the security architecture. So we should contribute to it. Because let me tell you, a lot of the people who also actually use tinted vehicles, who don't use number plates or who cover their number plates, are actually government officials and politicians. You can't seize their vehicles. So it's just the ordinary people going on the road, who just bought a vehicle because of, they just bought the vehicle with tinted glasses. And then you now go and punish them. We live in a hot environment, a humid environment. And sometimes people need a cover from the scorching sun. But be that as it may, you see, policing has gone beyond the manual level. You also have to use technology, tracking, and all of those things. They are very, very important. So let us not just, let's not turn ourselves into violators of the rule of law. We must uphold the rule of law in everything we do. Because let me tell you something. What they are doing to people will actually be done to them when they leave office. You saw policemen the other day protesting about their pensions. When they were in uniform, did they remember that a day will come when they will be denied their basic rights, to pensions? Let's always think beyond, all these self-effacing examples. that we cite to justify impunity. It will not work. Thank you.
All right, let's leave it at that. David Hodei has said that for you to not get into trouble with the Nigerian police, all you need to do is to visit a particular website. I think it's the website of the Nigerian Police Force. And when you click in there, you'll see where you will be asked to do all the things that you need to do, your NIN number and so many other things that you pay, and you get the permission to have a tint on your glass, and you would definitely not be part of those whose vehicles will be, of course, impounded. And let's move on to the Guardian newspaper for today. Straight to our talking point. Inside story of Soyinka's Center for Culture and the Creative Art. Sorry for that. Emeka, I'd love us to speak on the issue of Wole Soyinka and the National Theatre, which was christened, after him. It went from the National Theatre, which, of course, we thought was a landmark symbolic name that has been there since First Act 77, and it's now been turned to Wole Soyinka Theatre. I'd love you to speak to the issue of principle and morality. Remember, Wole Soyinka has been an activist who, in so many events, had criticized the governments of administrators, the military, and equally the civilians for their high-handedness and christening different facilities, public facilities, after their name. And here we have the man who was a critic now embracing what he used to criticize. Is there any reason for Wole Soyinka to have accepted the National Theatre turned to his name?
Well, thank you very much. I think, thank God it doesn't even name Bola Ahmed Tinubu Theatre. In fact, that would have been the most absurd, because the man appears to have this penchant, for getting public facilities named after him. But be that as it may, Wole Soyinka is a Nobel laureate and a playwright, in his own right. So I don't begrudge him if a public facility, in the realm of the arts where he eminently belongs, is named after him. But what I just want to observe is that, people have said that people like Ben Bruce and some other literary icons who did their best to, uphold the facility to make sure it wasn't totally abandoned, have been were left out of the story. I mean, they should have been acknowledged. They should have been acknowledged as well. It doesn't stop you from naming. It wouldn't have stopped them from naming the National Arts Theatre after Wole Soyinka. But what is necessary to be done should be done. And what I feel is that, you see, national symbols, let's spare us from some of these namings, because these symbols have history behind them. National Arts Theatre is supposed to be a unifying symbol for Nigerians. All of these naming, this and that and the other, all these things, to me, if you want to name institutions, public facilities after people, I think build your own and name it after them. Maybe within the National Arts Theatre, you could maybe build something, somewhere and say
another auditorium, possibly.
No, maybe within the National Theatre, okay, this is Professor Wole Soyinka. Because, for instance, there's a book written by Professor Wole Soyinka. I don't remember the title now. And that was years ago. So, a number of us, who were invited to the signing, to the autographing of, we went there. I was one of them. I bought 2 copies of the book, and they were personally signed by Professor Wole Soyinka at the National Theatre, under a tree at the National Theatre. There's a popular place called Abegi at the National Theatre, where theatre practitioners, journalists, and all that, gather. You have some restaurants, and other facilities there, and it's symbolic, it's a symbolic piece. So when you're not naming Wole Soyinka, well, for a case, if you make a case for optics, maybe for international recognition, that it will, the facility will have a stronger international presence as Wole Soyinka, with Wole Soyinka's name attached to it, than just a national arts theater. Well, you could have a reasonable argument, yes. But what I'm saying is that we should think deeply about these symbols, because we keep having problems, about national unity and all. And it's some of these facilities that remind us, that remind us about our oneness as Nigerians. In this era of ethnic triumphalism, where people are more interested in promoting their tribal origins than our diversity, our inclusivity, and it is necessary that we also place it at the back of our mind that, yes, it is important that we, seriously scrutinize, why we should name any institution after anybody. So that the Wole Soyinka Arts Theatre. Well, kudos to him, congratulations to him, on such a feat. But I think we should exercise restraint in naming on this job. Look at University of Maiduguri, a foremost federal university. You named it after Buhari. What did Muhammadu Buhari contribute to education in any way? Nothing. What did he contribute? Not that he contributed to the body of knowledge, or that, what you just woke up and built and meanwhile there are some institutions in his
name already
in his hometown of Daura that are named after him. You still jump to Maiduguri, where his mother comes from, and you still name something after him. So what it means is that if you want to name something after me, you go to my father's place, name one. You go to my mother's place and name one. What is all that? In a country of 230 million Nigerians, that doesn't make sense now. Let's leave those things. University of Maiduguri has more, pedigree than the Muhammadu Buhari University. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emeka. And one would wonder, just imagine that the Eiffel Towers in Paris is named after Macron, or the Statue of Liberty is renamed or rechristened to Donald J. Trump or his allies or whatever it is, just because they want to, show off or prove that they are Republicans. This is why I think for us in the third world, if not even the fourth world, we find it difficult, reconciling to the importance of unity in diversity. Murtala Muhammad International Airport was named after him in the southwest of Nigeria. Nnamdi Azikiwe in the north of Nigeria. All of this is because there's need for us to come together as one. Unity in diversity. But a situation where we promote ethnic reflection in the things that we do, I do not know if this will go down well. But of course, this is politics. Soldier goes, soldier come, barracks remain. Who knows what would happen if the next administration comes? Maybe they might erase all of this rechristening and renaming for photo ops that we keep doing in this administration. Emeka will still be here to take us on our main conversation when we return. Goodluck Jonathan recalls the Boko Haram talks. Buhari's camp hits back. In the beat, the Steel Enterprise Weekend. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Thank you so very much for being back, and if you just joined us, the Steel Enterprise Weekend. Let's move straight to our main conversation for today. Former President Goodluck Jonathan revealed that Boko Haram insurgents once nominated ex-President Muhammadu Buhari late to represent them in negotiations with the federal government during his administration's attempt at dialogue. Jonathan made the disclosure at the presentation of Scars, Nigeria's Journey and the Boko Haram Conundrum, a book authored by former Chief of Defense Staff General Lucky Irabor in Abuja. He explained that his government has set up committees to explore non-military solutions to end the insurgency. But despite Boko Haram's preference for Buhari, peace was never achieved. Jonathan added that he expected Buhari to succeed in persuading the terrorists to surrender when he later became president, but the crisis persisted, showing its complexities. He further described Boko Haram as more than an issue of poverty, citing their access to sophisticated weapons as proof of external influence. Jonathan urged the Tinubu administration to adopt a carrot-and-stick approach. Meanwhile, Buhari's loyalists, including his former aide Garba Shehu, dismissed Jonathan's claim as a false. I still have Emeka Madunagu. Thank you so very much, Emeka, for being here. Now let's get talking on this allegations and counter-allegations. And I'm wondering, why do you think Goodluck Jonathan would make this submission at a time when the person who should respond to that is no longer alive? Would we say he is rather being petty at this point?
He's not being petty. The book was on Boko Haram by no less a person than a former Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, who was at the center of the fight against Boko Haram insurgents. So there's nothing being petty in it. I mean, you make comments now that are in context, that are contextual to events, contextual to issues. And yes, in context. So he's not being petty. I mean, even though Buhari is not alive, but his media aide is alive now, Garba Shehu. The people who worked in his administration are alive. If you remember some time ago, the widow of the late head of state, General Sani Abacha, said her husband never stole any money. You understand? Even though we have records of how he pillaged the Nigerian economy and deposited our money in different bank accounts around the world in his own name. But that is by just permitting that digression. So what I'm trying to say is that on November 1, 2012, Vanguard newspaper reported Boko Haram names Buhari 5 others as mediators. And he said, federal government welcomes move, Buhari cautious. And at that time, Buhari didn't deny that. He didn't deny that story. Even Sarah TV carried a report, at the same time, that was 4 years ago, on, Buhari once appointed, mediator by Boko Haram, terrorists doing nothing to rescue abducted Kaduna students. That was by Moele Shore, who runs Sahara Reporters, that owns Sarah TV, So when you look at that, I remember the story. I've been a journalist for over 30 years. So I remember when that story was widely reported. So for Garba Shehu to come and to try to come and gaslight Nigerians that it was not true. He's just been funny. The same Buhari, if you remember, on 3rd of June 2011, was quoted in the report in this day as saying military offensive against Boko Haram is anti-North. And we can go on and on and on and on and on. The stories are all over the internet. The stories are all over the internet. And so it's not a hidden. It's not a hidden matter at all. It's not a hidden matter at all. It was November 1, 2012. Boko Haram names Buhari 5 others as mediators. So, excuse me, Garba Shehu was now trying, introduce a funny dimension that Boko Haram, tried to kill Buhari. Yes, I remember that was in Kaduna, but what happened was that there was a bombing attack, by Boko Haram, somewhere in Kaduna. And then, coincidentally, Buhari happened to be passing by the area in a 3-vehicle convoy, 3 SUVs. And of course, his name was not on the number plate. They didn't put Buhari. So, of course, when you see a convoy of 3 SUVs now, Prado Jeeps, Toyota Prado SUVs and all of that, ordinarily you will assume that they are government officials. So, the Boko Haram chaps who carried out the attack, now they attacked the convoy, not because they knew it was Buhari. In fact, as a matter of fact, when it was attacked, and then some people cited him, they were now shouting, it's Buhari, it's Buhari, it's Buhari, it's Buhari. They were shouting in Hausa that, it's Buhari, it's Buhari, it's Buhari. Because Buhari lived much of his life in Kaduna before he became president, So he was well known in Kaduna. Now, if you remember, if you cast your mind back to the trial of the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, National Security Advisor under President Goodluck Jonathan's tenure, Colonel Sambo Dasuki. Remember, one of the things he said was that after Buhari was attacked, his SUVs were replaced, and I was also given $300,000 cash, as support by the Jonathan administration. All these records are there, as a result of the attack. So, but Garba Shehu now say that Jonathan was, trying to use it to push his presidential ambition. It just being mysterious, just being mysterious, there's another story by The Nation, which says, the Islamic sect Boko Haram yesterday opted for dialogue with the federal government, picking former military leader General Muhammadu Buhari as a mediator. So 7 years ago, that was 2018. But of course, that was around 2012 too, when that thing took place. Because they said Buhari contested last year's presidential election on the platform of the Congress for Progressive Change against President Goodluck Jonathan. So that was in 2011. So when you look at all of these things, you just find out that, Alhaji Garba Shehu's attempt to, change the narrative, doesn't make sense. Why is he referring to Shekau, who led, the Boko Haram group? We know what happened, around that period. That government expected that Buhari would have really come down hard on Boko Haram, but giving statements, he made, before becoming president, that showed like he felt that the onslaught against Boko Haram was, an onslaught against the North, that President Goodluck Jonathan shouldn't have been high-handed against Boko Haram. But if you remember, Jonathan's predecessor, Umar Musa Yaradua, in Northern Atu, came down hard on Boko Haram in 2009 when their hostilities broke out in Maiduguri. He came down hard. Even the father-in-law of the founder of Boko Haram, Muhammad Yusuf, was not spared. He was the man who went to the police to say, look, see what his son-in-law had been engaged in, that the police should investigate him. Sadly, a whistleblower, a man who came to give useful information, was also killed. Then the police also extrajudicially killed Muhammad Yusuf. Muhammad Yusuf was captured by the military, but handed over to the police, and he was killed. We saw all these videos of all these things that happened. Even the killing of Buji Foy, who was a commissioner for religious affairs, in Borno State. How he was shot. The video came out. The video was recorded. It was uploaded online. So what are we talking about? Why are you now trying to make it look as if we were all children when all of these things happen? I think, Garba Shehu should find another story. He's saying that, it was somebody who just brought up the story. No. You should have said this thing. You should have mentioned this thing a long time ago. Throughout 8 years that Buhari spent in presidency, his government never made any attempt to debunk that assertion. So the joke is on them. Thank you.
The joke is actually on them. I vividly remember that even the UAE had submitted names of Boko Haram sponsors to the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, and Nigerians were actually waiting for him to unleash that name so we know who the sponsors are, but he did not, which smells of complicity at that particular point. And remember, it's equally during his own time that his kinsmen, the Fulani herdsmen, allegedly, went around the country and created all the big issue that we have currently ravaging Nigeria. But let's come to the now, Emeka. That was during Goodluck Jonathan. Up until today, Kwara is no longer safe. Even in the southwest of Nigeria, Plateau, Benue, and other parts of the country are still being plunged by the dreaded Boko Haram and their associates. Speak to me on the issue of Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz from the United States of America. Did you see his comment on X regarding how that the Boko Haram are killing lots of Nigerians, especially, he said, Christians, and the government of the day seem not to be concerned about this, and how he said that the United States of authority would use everything within its reach to ensure that those in authority play by the book or have themselves to blame. How great is this promise, or should we call it threat, by Senator Ted Cruz? And what do you think the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing right now, considering someone who is an ally of Donald Trump speaking what we would love to know if Donald Trump is equally part of that statement, intrinsically?
Yeah, thank you very much. I saw the tweet by Ted Cruz, and then the response by Bayo Onanuga, the media aide to President Bola Tinubu. I saw both of them this morning, and I just burst out laughing. Bayo Onanuga was saying you should stop peddling lies and all of that. You see, the problem is when you are not sufficiently trained in the nuances of public relations, you turn yourself into a nuisance. A PR fellow, a fellow of Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, Yusuf Tribe, some days ago, he published an article where he said that Bayo Onanuga was engaging in bolekaja, image management of the president. That everything to him, every issue to him is a hammer, is a nail, and so he believes on every issue you should use a hammer. How can you be talking to a ranking senator of the United States saying he's spending life, instead of you to have allowed the Nigerian foreign minister to issue a formal statement? Because let me tell you something. Look, you see, for these Western nations, they curate their actions long in advance. Remember, under Buhari, this same thing happened. But it was this same thing, this allegation came up, and some sanctions were put in place. It was under Joe Biden, former president of the United States, that they were lifted. Now, instead of Nigeria to manage its international comments on certain issues, they went out blatantly calling for an independent Palestinian state. Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuga, also said that Nigeria was in support of Hamas. How do you say such things?
And Emeka, did you see the FFK welcoming of the Palestinian man that was arrested by the security operative?
It's what I'm talking about. So when all of these things, they look at all of these things and they draw allusions They look at all of these things and they draw lines and they say, okay, don't worry. When the time comes, you will hear from us. And that is what they are doing right now. That's what they are doing. I mean, the countries that are recognized an independent Palestinian state, they have the leverage to do so. Nigeria doesn't have the leverage right now to do so. Things are not okay back home. Instead of us to concentrate our energies on solving our problems, we're going to, jump into a fight involving heavyweights. I mean, the countries involved in this, you even see the Gulf states, the Arab states, they've been, speaking from both sides of the mouth. Saudi Arabia,
Egypt,
the rest of them. They've been speaking, UAE, they've been speaking from both sides of the mouth. Qatar, that hosts the headquarters of Hamas, what they did after Israel bombed, some places in Qatar, what did they do? They reached out to US President Donald Trump and said, please, do something about this. We don't want, another Arab-Israeli war. And then Donald Trump went quickly, drew up a peace plan. And Hamas has said, okay, as part of the peace plan, they are going to release all Israeli hostages. Nigeria is not part of anything. The only place where Nigeria just showed up was the OIC, the last meeting of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, to which Nigeria belongs, where they express support for Palestine and all of that. Now, coming to the issue of Ted Cruz, you find out that after Vice President Kashim Shettima made that speech at the UN General Assembly, talking about, recognizing, supporting Palestinian statehood, you saw all of a sudden, according to some reports I've seen, influencers, American and Jewish influencers, now started pushing this narrative of the killing of Christians. The problem with our people in government is that they don't engage in crisis, management, preventive measures. Before you go out to say something, why not think, sit down, hold a crisis meeting. Look at the pros, look at the cons. Your Vuvuzelas, the boys you pay 20,000 naira monthly in your WhatsApp groups, they can't match these guys. They can't match these guys. These guys are, man, they are well set up globally. Yes, and they can turn the tide against you. So to now come and now say that Ted Cruz is telling lies, this is a guy who is close to Donald Trump. And you know one thing about Trump, when he has positive sides on anybody, whatever you're telling him doesn't make any sense to him. That's the way Trump is. And Ted Cruz, coming from a very influential state in the US, the state of Texas. So you can imagine that he's not joking. He titled the bill he's pushing. He said Nigeria Religious Freedom Responsibility Act. He put Nigeria there. He didn't just say global Nigeria.
Or West African.
No, or Sub-Saharan. He said Nigeria. So clearly, and this bill has passed second reading in the Senate. So definitely it has been referred to the Committee on Foreign Relations. Cast your mind back to 2001 when then President Olusegun Obasanjo ordered a military attack on Zaki Biam where some soldiers were killed. Do you know that it was a ranking US senator that used his powers? I think it was Senator Langley, I'll try and remember his name, who used his power to get the US government to place an embargo on the sales of arms and ammunition to Nigeria. That was one of the things that actually gave impetus to this insecurity ravaging Nigeria. Because Nigerians' hands were tied. We couldn't get vital weapons, aircraft, and all of those things. But even though later, when Donald Trump, in his first term, gave express approval, okay, Nigeria can have some of these weapons and all of that. But what has improved? When they gave us Tucano jets, assembled in Brazil, assembled by Embraer of Brazil, they also put restrictions on how we could use the jets on the areas of Nigeria where we could use those jets in combat operations. So you can imagine, it's just like you go and buy a pole, an electric pole, and the power utility tells you, even though you bought it with your money, you bought the transformer with your money, but it still belongs to us. So you can imagine that kind of skewed negotiation. Yes. And so that embargo on arms sales to Nigeria, it really hurt us. So we had to now go to Belarus, Pakistan. We had to start going to some funny countries. I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but we had to go to countries whose technology, whose military industrial complex, are not anywhere near the American military industrial complex. Whose military technology, doesn't match the American technology. And if you look at it, I remember when Buhari was head of state of Nigeria, he visited DICON, Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria in Kaduna, and he made a statement. He said that Nigeria would do its best to start producing tanks. In fact, there was a prototype that was built by DICON, which he called Gulma, Gulma. I don't know what it means. Gulma. Then, when Buhari was head of state, remember he came in December 31, 1983. That was in 84, 85. So, if we had continued, if we had continued, by now, Nigeria would have been at least a medium power, in the military industrial complex, the global military industrial complex. But where are we? Where are we? We're talking of sending people to space when, we cannot tackle ordinary kidnappers and all these, criminals. I mean, so our priorities are really upside down. Our priorities are really upside down. That's why I've said it, and I will repeat it. We need to do a study of our foreign policy. Let's know where we stand. The era of when Obasanjo was military head of state, when Murtala Mohammed was military head of state, we are no longer in that era. The glory has departed. We are falling several notches below what we used to be. Look at ordinary bandits. Even calling them bandits is a disgrace. Ordinary terrorists. They will invade a village with motorcycles and you can't find the Air Force. What do you call that? Now there's a report that has come out that, Nigerian authorities returned people who were rescued from Boko Haram kidnappers. They were returned. Girls, young ladies were returned to those who made them as their wives. They were returned to those people. And that doesn't matter to you. The international community looks at all of these things. Watch what Donald Trump has been talking about, issues that are very dear to him. You cannot fight him. It can actually cut off. We depend on a lot of aid from the Western world. If they cut off this aid, let me tell you, a lot of things are going to collapse in this country. That's the truth. Even for something as simple as malaria, we are still depending on aid. Nigeria, I think under Biden, was the third highest recipient of aid from the now disbanded U.S. Agency for International Development. Third highest. Why? So-called giant of Africa. You say that our revenue has increased, which is true, but we are still borrowing, spending a lot of money on debt servicing, $1.39 billion on debt servicing, within a period. So what does that say about you? You are now going to dabble into Palestine. Buhari, as head of state, was talking about an independent state for Western Sahara. We just keep dabbling into issues where we don't have the leverage to enforce, what we are pushing. Why don't we just deal with what is within our province? What is within our province? Now, Cameroon has withdrawn their troops from a Borno village. The governor had to now mobilize some, forces to help to secure the area. Now, the alliance of, Sahel states has threatened to release a list of alleged sponsors of Boko Haram and ISWAP. The Borno governor, Professor Omar Zulu, ran quickly to go and meet with the head of state of Niger. So all of these things, people are now saying, what was the purpose of they're asking, what was the purpose of the visit? But be that as it may, we need to realign our foreign interests, realign our expectations. There is no point going into, these small dogs they call bingo, going into a fight with a Doberman or with a bulldog or so. It will be torn to pieces. And that is what is happening to us right now. Instead of you engaging diplomatically to say, look at. I'll give you one more example, if you permit me. I remember when John Aristide, was president of Haiti, and Haiti was having problems. Obasanjo was head of state there, and he wanted to dispatch, a presidential jet to Haiti, to intervene. It was a U.S. Congress woman, her name just jumped off my mind, who ensured that aircraft did not take off from Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja. She put down her foot. And Nigeria, stay away from Haiti's problems. Stay away, So when you look at all of these things, and then we are going to put our head into Palestinian statehood. Hapa, what are we trying to show? You are the same ones engaging Israel, for security assistance. At the same time, you are playing a double game by pushing for Palestinian statehood, by saying you support Hamas. Hapa, where do you stand now?
Very true, Emeka. Very, very, very true. We can go on and on this matter. It's really not logical that we do all this simply because we still do not understand the political terrain and how others play it, and therefore we do not even know how to play it in the first place. Remember, like I did say, Kwara is currently being devastated right now by a bunch of rascals who call themselves insurgents and bandits, and we have an administration who do not really care so much about it. Nothing had been said, largely from the presidency on this matter. But here we have leadership that is more concerned about things happening miles away from us, when we can't even take care of that is closest to us. From Kwara, it might encroach to Ondo, Osun, and who knows, Ogun and Lagos. And this is what we have. And rather than our administration do something about it to check this and ensure that this is caught in shreds, here we have an administration that is more concerned or fixated on international matters. Thank you so very much, Emeka. I wish we had enough time to do some more talking on this, but we just have to leave it at this point. Thank you so very much once more for being here. Truly do appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Let me tell you, the insurgents are not small boys, so they're not small. The issue in Kwara, let me quickly add, the issue in Kwara is about illegal mining to marine lithium. So it is not, it's not just a local Nigerian matter. Jonathan said something about external forces funding Boko Haram. We must look into that. It is not, local Tutu Naira businessmen in Nigeria, politicians, who are looking for lithium and all those things. So that is the reason why they have invaded Okeode in Kwara. Because there's a study that says that area, down to Share, that they have abundant deposits of mineral resources. So let's get our facts clear. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. But one would equally have thought that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is from the southwest of Nigeria, of course, Kwara might be is geographically located in the north, but we all know that it is in the southwest of Nigeria, would have done something about it. For him to have laid low and pretend like he doesn't get information on some of these things, it's actually not good enough. But of course, we do hope that his attention will be drawn to these issues such that it could be, nose dived or pivoted to areas that we can, of course, control them. That's just about the time we have. Please do well to follow us. You can find us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us. Thank you so very much and have yourself a splendid weekend. I am Henry Wibike. Bye-bye.